Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today to discuss the current economic situation in our supply chain. I'm James Cirigilano, the Marketing Director for Diversified Labeling Solutions, and with me today is Bob Hakman, the owner of DLS, to help answer some of your questions.
Good morning, everyone.
So our goal today is to educate you as well as provide you support for when you have to explain cost increases to your customers. So just a little bit kind of fill you in here, you can type in some questions in the Q&A section. So there should be a box, a blue box in the upper right-hand part of your screen that will start the Q&A area, and I think it opens an area for you to type in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So feel free to send in your questions. We will be watching those questions, and towards the end of the presentation, we'll try to get to all of them. And if we run out of time and don't get to all your questions, we'll be happy to respond to them to you offline if we can't get to them. So we'll also have a copy of this presentation that will be available for download and unbranded, so it won't have any of our information on there. You guys can download that as a PDF to share with your customers after the meeting. And we'll also have a recorded version of this so you can listen to the commentary and the questions and answers as well if you'd like to listen to that later. So the information we're presenting today is based on numbers from May 2018 pricing. And I'd like to take this time to thank our suppliers, MacTac and Avery Dennison, for supplying the supporting data. So let's talk about some of the things that have contributed to the current state of affairs. The Internet has had a dramatic effect on the print industry over the past 15 years by greatly reducing the amount of printed materials, thus causing several pulp and paper facilities to close down. Global market fluctuations also affected those companies. When we had the economic downturn in 2008 and 9, paper companies scaled back and just didn't add to their capacity. And China plays a major role in that it consumes 55% of the world's scrap paper and is a major destination for other recyclables. Think about that. 55% of the world's scrap paper goes to China. So what they've been doing is, in an effort to reduce the amount of pollution China is experiencing, they've been shutting down entire industries like the chemical plants that produce leuco dyes used for direct thermal face stocks, as well as companies that produce silicone used in label liners. So China has also notified the World Trade Organization about the banning of recyclables back in last July, essentially saying the country would no longer act as the world's trash dump. They've been enforcing the national sword policy since January, and for those of you who may not be familiar with the national sword, it's a campaign launched by China's General Administration of Customs. It's an initiative with the goal of cutting down on foreign waste intake, including plastics, industrial waste, electronics, and other household waste materials. And they're putting higher restrictions on these materials they receive from around the world by asking for cleaner materials to recycle. And all these factors are converging to the point where suppliers are predicting somewhere between 4 to 5 years of inflation, and pulp, you know what, that could be up for almost over a decade now. So we're going to discuss how the elements that make up a label, from paper to film supplies to hot melts and adhesives, liners, to packaging and freight costs, all have been affected by inflation. So let's get started. So we're going to start talking about the paper industry. So when we talk about paper, we start with pulp. Pulp is a form of wood that's been grounded to a fine powder and is used into making the face sheets and liners. So the Northern Bleached Softwood Kraft, or NBSK, is the paper's industry's benchmark grade of pulp. This is showing that the demand as well as the price has been increasing significantly since 2016. We're already up 19% from last year already, 36.2% from 2016. So you can see it's a pretty dramatic increase there that we're seeing. Natural gas is a key component in the pulp industry, believe it or not. It's necessary in the process of turning pulp, which starts out as a slurry, into the paper materials we use for the label manufacturing. Not only is it used for paper, but it's also used in the production of adhesives as well. Here we can see that the price of natural gas has gone up 55.5% since 2016. And the chart here is showing the cost per million BTUs, what that's measuring. So you can see that that's a very significant increase as well. So oil. Oil is a key component to our materials that we use. So let's talk about how oil prices are impacting the synthetic label material components. It all starts with crude oil. As we frequently see in the news, the cost of crude oil continues to rise. Oil prices are up 67% compared to 2016 and up 44% already from last year. So that also continues to rise. So we talk about chemicals. Chemistry touches over 96% of all manufactured goods. And in the label world, chemicals are used to make faces, liners, and adhesives such as tackifiers, which that gives the adhesion its strength, and butadiene, which is a binder used in adhesives. So the chemical activity barometer, or CAB, which is the chart you're seeing here, started back in 1983, and it started at an index of 100. And in the last 7 or 8 months, it's really grown quite a bit, especially, and it currently sits at a historical high of 269.1. So what this chart is measuring is the average change over time in the selling prices received by domestic producers for their output, is what you're seeing. So direct thermal. Direct thermal is in some turmoil here as well. So in the last 12 months, we've seen increases from the biggest players in the DT market, like Juzhou, Hansol, Oji, and Appion. And Appion actually just recently announced another 6% increase effective here in June. So that'll actually bring that cumulative up to 20% than what you see on the screen there. Late last year, China started shutting down Luco dye manufacturing plants due to environmental concerns. And if you're not familiar what Luco dye is, it's the coating that goes on to the paper or film that makes direct thermal. So it makes it heat sensitive and makes it dark there. So China actually produces 90% of the world's DT coatings. And one main supplier, Connect Chemicals, is only currently supplying about 10% of what they normally produce. They alone were responsible for about 60% of the world's DT coatings. So that's pretty impressive. Other suppliers are now working at reduced rates, but supply and timing can be uncertain. And to top it off, DT coaters are getting into bidding wars to make sure they have enough supply. And it's driving up costs, partly due to that they have to air freight all the shipments in order to get it all moved quickly. We're not sure exactly when we'll see a resolution to the situation, but we can expect it to last through 2018 for sure. So plastics. These are probably the most common chemicals used in creating labels, and they've all been increasing over the years. Polystyrene is up 17.9% since 2016. Polypropylene has seen more fluctuations up and down through the past couple of years, but overall is still showing an increase. And as you can see, PET is also up 13.5% from 2016. So silicone metals are mainly used for liners and laminates when it relates to the world of labels. Silicon is currently on global allocation right now. So China, again, produces a majority of the world's silicon metal, and their environmental regulations have put those restrictions on the production of silicon. And we started seeing this effect in the label components probably towards the later part of last year. And margins have been shrinking and supplies have been very limited. So it's been putting a strain on the whole industry with the liners and some of the face stocks that are available there. And laminates, sorry, not face stocks. Let's talk a little bit about propylene adhesives. Propylene is an oil-based adhesive, and again, it's significantly increased since 2016. Here we see it's up 58.9%, and that's per metric ton of the propylene adhesive. The packaging market. So we're seeing increases on pallet pricing. There's a lot less sawmills open today compared to just 10 years ago. And in order for lumber companies to survive, they've all been running leaner and carrying a lot less inventory. Also, weather. There's been a significant increase in the amounts of rain. And then on the opposite side of that, we've also seen incredibly large wildfires. So that can make logging very difficult to produce more wood and pulp and paper. So here we're seeing double digits across the board here, an increase, no pun intended. Again, keeping with the trends, pallets, they're up 20.8% for that's dollars per 1,000 board feet is what that's measuring. The corrugated medium, we're up 28% from 2016, and those are actually measured by 26-pound unit cubes. Typically what they measure those by. And linerboard. Linerboard's up 23%, and that's measured in 42-pound unit cubes. So again, double digits all across the packaging industry here. Freight costs. With more online ordering from companies like Amazon, Walmart, and other big box stores, there's more and more stress on these logistics companies, in addition to bad weather and high turnover rates among truck drivers. And there's also UPS drivers could go on strike next month if the new pay increase negotiations don't get resolved. So that could put another strain on logistics. I put a quote in here from the Wall Street Journal to show that it's not just our industry being affected by the issue, but all the industries are being affected. And the continued increase, some of these people in other industries are predicting that it could continue to rise by high single digits or even high teen percentages. So it's going to continue, and it's not getting any better. Freight costs. So when we talk about freight costs here, these are the shipping using the dry vans. These are the covered trucks that you see driving everywhere. That's typically how we ship. So spot rates, as you can see, is the chart there is the dollar per mile of what is being charged for manufacturers. So the black line you see there is the 2016 rate. If you look right above that, that orange or gold line was where we were in 2017. And the red line there at the top, you can kind of see already it's way up there, kind of almost matching where we were way back in 2014. So even higher than we were in 2014. DLS typically deals with contract rates, and we're still seeing increases of 8 to 11% year over year on those increases as well. Labors and conversions. So consumer price index summary. Over the last 12 months, we've seen increases in food prices, energy prices, fuel prices, shelter expenses, even medical care. And companies have to increase the pay to employees to help offset the cost of living. And that seems to be on a trend of continuing to rise around 2.5% per year. So we're already up a little over 5% from 2016. So I realize this all sounds like doom and gloom, but there is a little bit of a silver lining to all this. So just think about this for a second. Every piece of label business will soon be going out to bid. So any leads that you've been trying to get into may now actually provide you with an opportunity to bid on projects that you may not have been able to before. So that's just a little silver lining here. So I know some of you have been writing some questions in. Any at all?
James, you've done such a great job explaining everything. No one's got any questions.
No questions. Wow. Okay. Well, if any of you do have questions, please feel free to either type them in now. We'll give you a few seconds if anybody does have any questions. If not, feel free to email us. You can email us at marketing@teamdls.com, And if you have any questions about the presentation or any parts of the presentation that you would like to know more about, we're happy to take the time and explain that to you. So anything coming in? No? Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll have an unbranded presentation in a PDF format for you ready to download. Oh, we do have a question. Hang on. Okay.
Is there a one-page summary you can provide that we can use with customers? I don't know if we can get all this on one page, but we could probably get it boiled down to 1 to 2 pages that we could do this. So yeah, we can work on that and maybe have it for you early part of next week. When will this presentation be available? It will be available. Anybody that's attending this will automatically be sent a copy of the presentation, and we will also be then posting this onto our website at some future point.
So you're going to receive an email. It may come from WebEx. I'm not sure. It'll probably say something about this meeting. And there will be a link in there to be able to download an unbranded PDF of this presentation. And then we will, probably in a day or two, have this presentation available as a video form so you can actually hear the commentary as well.
Okay, so question is when will your price increase take effect? So basically right now we are quoting all business under the new pricing. Pricing will go into effect on July 2nd. So, you know, we still have a week or so to be able to get out to your customers, talk to them about what opportunities they may see coming up, get additional orders in for blankets, things of that nature. We're still going to honor the price as long as we can still get the material in at the current pricing. But basically, effective July 2nd, everything will be going into effect. The unbranded presentation will be going out to all of the attendees.
Yes, as long as everybody is RSVP'd, even if you didn't attend today, if no one's attending today's session, if they did RSVP for the presentation, they will have a link to be able to download it.
Okay, so one other question is there an alternative option for clients instead of direct thermal? So you probably saw an email we sent out last week where we were talking about some of the economy thermal transfer ribbons. So what you have out there is basically a battle going on between thermal transfer and direct thermal. With costs changing, you know, back in 10 and 11, thermal transfer ribbons exploded and went up dramatically, and then they started falling back as the polyester became more available in the marketplace. And then also some economy grades of ribbons has been coming out over the last couple of years, which again is driving down the cost of ribbons. So we're getting back to almost a parity between thermal transfer and direct thermal. The issue will be the durability of the IVs that you're trying to put on your ribbon or on your label, but you're probably getting pretty close. Thermal transfer still has an advantage, but with the price increases that we see here and potential ones that may be coming down the road, we think that there will be parity probably by the end of this year.
And I'm going to throw this out there. We are working with some suppliers for a new solution that could be a slightly different solution for direct thermal. More of that will come soon from us, so keep looking in your emails for that announcement soon.
Okay. Here's actually, this is a great question. What are you doing internally to offset some of these price increases? So obviously we are turning around and working our vendors as hard as we can to negotiate the best price we can. I will tell you that because of what you just saw today, our suppliers are coming out and they're pretty hard and fast with the prices that we're getting. There's not a lot of give to from a material standpoint. From an internal standpoint, over the last year, we put in a new trim system down in our Dallas plant, and we've also improved the horsepower, I guess, for our Chicago plant. That totals about $500,000 that we've invested right now just in getting our machines to be able to run faster with less stops, giving us additional capabilities and speeds. So again, we're trying to keep our costs down as much as possible. We're offering incentives to the employees as far as performance, but the other side of the coin is we don't want to sit there and create situations where our employees are creating errors because they're trying to go too fast. So there's a balance there that we're trying to manage toward. With the world facing environmental issues, where do you see the future of labels? That's a great question. There's no doubt that there's going to be a change. I mean, we've seen changes go on for years where we used to say our credit cards, we used to be able to sit down and put a credit card down, and we had a multi-part form that they ran across, and then we got direct thermal. I mean, everything's in a change, in a state of flux, and I do see some sort of reaction to the overall environment. I think the real change we're going to see is really in kind of the flexible packaging that's out there. With China's SWORD initiative, there's going to be a reduction, or countries are not going to be able to find a home for all of this recycled waste. And so as a consequence, a lot of that waste is going to have to become biodegradable, because last April, or this April and May, China took no waste products into the country. Vietnam, which was the second most shipped to for waste, has imposed the same standards as China. And now they're looking at India and other countries to try to dispose of the waste. But if you think about it, that's just creating a larger shipping lane that the product has to get from point A to point B. So, and there's a lot of cost to that. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. You probably saw the initiatives coming out of Europe where they're trying to ban plastics by 2025. I think that's going to spread back over to North America as well. So there's a lot of environmental issues, cost issues that we're going to be faced for the next probably 5, maybe 10 years. So it's going to be an interesting time. Should we be receiving a new price catalog? Yes, that will be available sometime next week. And if you send a request into marketing at Team DLS, they'll be happy to send you an electronic version of our stock catalog.
There's also a section on our site, so if you go to services, online services, there is a request a catalog there as well, a little short form to fill that out, and you'll get your catalog right away.
Okay. Another question is, what are we seeing for the average price increases? Basically, your film products, your paper-based products are all going up right around 4%. It could be 3.8, it could be 4.2, but right in that general area. Your DT products are all going up in that 6 to 7% range. And again, that's a lot of that has to do with the leukodye situation that's going on out there. And we're hoping that this dye situation will get resolved. A lot of this has been created because China is hosting a world environmental conference in the fourth quarter of this year. So they're basically trying to get their house in order before the world delegates, show up at their doorstep. So a lot of these things that we're seeing with silicone and photo inhibitors for inks and et cetera, a lot of that will probably abate once those environmental concerns are changed over in China. So, but one of the things they're doing is if you're not 100% environmentally clean, they're not letting you start up in production. So they're being very tough Very tough over there right now. I think that's about all the questions we got.
Okay. Well, again, thank you everyone for attending. I hope we were able to better explain the reasons that are driving the price increases, and we can assure you that we have been and will continue to work with all our suppliers to provide you with the best possible prices. Thanks again, and have a great week, everyone.